from every single angle for 12 straight days. That's 286 hours and about 3 million minutes. Nick Wright, I counted all of them. The Eagles are currently 5.5-point underdogs, the biggest underdog in the Super Bowl since 2009. Despite being the 1 seed, the Eagles haven't been favored in any of their 3 playoff games. Here's Eagles coach Doug Peterson.
It's impressive, obviously, and it's well respected and well documented. You know, at the same time, we're just going to prepare the same and try to block out all the noise. There's going to be a lot, you know, written, probably both extremes, you know. But again, our guys have been resilient. They've been able to block that noise out, and you know, once the ball is teed up and kicked off, you know, just trust our players, trust our schemes, and play football.
That seems to be a lot easier said than done, especially when it comes to the Super Bowl. Why aren't the Eagles, Chris, getting any more respect?
Well, anytime you lose a quarterback in Carson Wentz that was in the conversation for MVP, most people are going to temper their expectations for that team. And so I think that's what we saw from the Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody said that Nick Foles had experience as a starter, so that was a reason for optimism. But we can't forget, after that season where he had 27 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions, he didn't do much as a starting quarterback in this league. So when you saw those first 3 games in the regular season that he had an opportunity to start, particularly the last 2 games of the regular season, the offense wasn't very explosive. I mean, when you started seeing what they did in terms of point production, you had 19 points and 0 points, that Raiders game on Christmas Day, and then the Dallas Cowboys season finale that they lost. So, I mean, why should you have high expectations for what this team can do when they got into the postseason, when you're going to play against better defenses, better overall teams? We just didn't. But you saw that defense came and stepped up in the divisional round against the Atlanta Falcons. And then I think the time that they've had with Nick Foles over the course of the last month or so, being able to get that practice time, those first team reps, establish that chemistry with those wide receivers, I think you're starting to see some of the fruits of that now. And Doug Peterson having more of a familiarity with what Nick Foles does well and what he doesn't do so well, and tailoring the game plan accordingly. So I think you're seeing a combination of all those different factors come into play. That's why Nick Foles was able to have the game he did on Sunday.
Well, and we also have to keep in mind that, as Chris mentioned, that the offense hadn't looked good, and for the Eagles until last week or the other day, and we hadn't seen a complete game by the Philadelphia Eagles since they beat the Los Angeles Rams when the game Carson Wentz got hurt. The next week when they played the Giants, their offense did look good, but the defense looked awful against the New York Giants. Following 2 weeks, their offense went away. And you got to keep in mind who they were playing. For their first playoff game, they're playing the Falcons. The Falcons, who people considered a hot team. The Falcons, who had just played one of their better games all year in beating the Los Angeles Rams. Then they're playing the Minnesota Vikings, a team that was the same record as Philadelphia, but hadn't lost one of their key contributors, their starting quarterback.
Well, their backup had played the whole season, basically.
Right. They lost their starting quarterback in week 1 as opposed to in week 14. And now, why are they underdogs? Playing the bleeping Patriots. Because, I mean, if they were playing the Jags, I promise you the Eagles would be favorites right now. Like, I don't look at them being 5.5-point underdogs as a sign of major disrespect to Philadelphia. It's a sign of enormous respect to New England and still some, I would say, fair skepticism about Nick Foles. Because Nick Foles, we've seen him now start a handful of games. He's only been what you would call great in one of them, and he was great this past weekend, but I don't think people are ready to say that's the Nick Foles you're going to get 12 days from now.
Well, let's not forget where we started the season. Everybody's talking about, oh, disrespect, disrespect. We came into this season where New England was the biggest favorite that we had seen since I've been covering the NFL. The disparity of who we thought they would be and the rest of the league, we thought were just miles apart. So now we're here at the Super Bowl. New England's in the Super Bowl. So why wouldn't we think that whoever it was going to be, because where we started in September, why would we be so removed from that? New England's lost players, just like other teams have lost players. That's one reason why New England is the big favorite. The other reason why Aaron Rodgers is not in the game. All right? Let's go Seattle, Russell Wilson, and Seattle and Pete Carroll. They're not in the game. Minnesota wouldn't be a big underdog. They'd be playing at home, and their defense matches up very, very well with the New England Patriots. So when you look at other signals like that, if Atlanta had beaten Philadelphia, then had gone to Minnesota and beat them, oh, they wouldn't be as a big underdog because of their overall experience and the quarterback. The reason they're not facing an elite quarterback, if Carson Wentz was in this game, this would probably be a 2-point game. Carson Wentz, we're missing the running ability of Carson Wentz in this offense that they do a lot of RPOs, run pass options for the quarterback. Carson Wentz's ability on third down. We believe Carson Wentz is a superstar. We believe that he and the receiving corps would be able to match the firepower of Brady if he was in the game. So all these things as far as, oh, they don't respect me, I'm going to put on a dog mask. Man, get yourself a dog biscuit too, all right? That's the New England Patriots, and it's no disrespect because one team is favored in the Super Bowl, and it's the New England Patriots with all their vast experience and that huge edge they have.
If you would have told Tom Brady and Bill Belichick that they were going to be playing against a backup quarterback in the Super Bowl, I'm sure they would expect to be favored. That's exactly what we're talking about here, so we have to keep it in perspective. That's not just the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not an indictment on them. That's just the reality of the NFL. With most teams, if you're playing against a backup quarterback, going up against the greatest quarterback of all time, you're probably not going to be favored.
When you were a huge underdog in the Super Bowl, how did that affect your preparation? How did you guys look at that situation? Because you were in.
Not one bit. We don't focus on that. Who cares about that? We have an opportunity. We're in the game. And guess what? We had a quarterback that had done it before. He had beaten the New England Patriots and Tom Brady in 2007 with a game-winning drive for the ages with that pass to David Tyree, and then he capped it off with the touchdown pass to Plaxico Burress. So we knew that we had an opportunity, but the focus was about the execution. The focus was about making sure that we did everything that we needed to do, just individually and as a unit, to give ourselves the best chance to be there at the end. And that's all you can ask for.
I also remember being there with the Giants team. Now, the Giants, y'all have some dudes that like to hang out, like to party.
Yeah.
But, man, y'all got focused when y'all had New England.
I'm glad you brought that up, CC, because, listen, the week before the Super Bowl, we had to get together. The defensive line got together. We said, guys, we're going to go out. We're going to have a good time tonight. We're going to go out to dinner, and we're going to be around each other. But when we get to the Super Bowl, we're going to be all about business. It's not hanging out with your family. It's not hanging out with your boys. Everybody else is going to the Super Bowl site with a different agenda. Ours is to make sure that we do everything that we can to win the game. So it's focusing on putting yourself in a situation, preparation-wise, where you're ready to go on Sunday.
Look, let's face it, the reason that they're underdogs, the reason that the Patriots are such big favorites in this is because of Nick Foles. This would be a different conversation if this was Carson was walking in with this Eagles team. So we're going to ask this question in like 12 different ways leading up to the game. Which is the Nick Foles we're going to see? Are they going to take the same game plan, long passes, give him the confidence to do what he did and open it up a little bit? Or are they going to be a little bit more, are they going to tighten it up a little bit, which is the Nick Foles game plan we kind of saw the 3 games prior?
Well, I think you're going to have to be aggressive. You're going to have to take your shots going up against this Patriots offense. It's just what it is in order to be able to score points against that defense, because you got to think that Bill Belichick is going to try to take away the short and intermediate passing game, the high percentage throws in between the numbers, some of the things that Nick Foles does very well. And you looked at that game plan against the Minnesota Vikings, Doug Peterson had a lot of those passes early before opening it up and taking those shots downfield. I think he wanted to make sure that they knew he would take a shot, that early throw to Torrey Smith that they didn't complete. But you saw he built Nick Foles' confidence by being able to have that short and intermediate passing game. And then you saw Nick Foles start to get in the rhythm, and that's when you started to see the chunk plays.
All right, but here's another edge, aside from the quarterbacks the Patriots have. CeCe, you talked about in the playoff games, you want to treat them like a regular season game. If you're on the early bus, take the early bus. If you go out to warm up, you can't do that in the Super Bowl. You can't pretend it's a regular season game because there's 2 weeks between, because there's the media stuff, because, as we were talking about off the air, you got a dozen tickets family members are asking you for. All these things. One edge you guys had in 2011 is while there were a lot of new players, your quarterback, your coach, and a few of the key guys had been in that game before. If you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you have 7 games of combined Super Bowl experience on your roster. 3 of those 7 come from LeGarrette Blount and Chris Long, who got them playing for New England, right? The New England Patriots have 60 games of combined Super Bowl experience. Tom Brady has played in as many games, as many Super Bowls, as the entire Eagles roster. That's another part of it. Like that they know the Patriots somehow, they've been able to develop a Super Bowl routine.
Yes.
That's
Sometimes we get caught up in that. But last year before the game, Super Bowl 51, we said the same thing about Atlanta. And I blinked and the score was 28-3 for the team that had no experience.
Good point.
So
It's not the deciding factor, but it's an edge in one team's favor.
but I watched last year's Super Bowl. The other team didn't have any experience. They got out to a 28-3 lead. So we do have enough of a sample size to be able to say that teams that don't have experience, they have played well also.
Of course.
And
All
if
right.
we're going to ask it 12 times, you got to put some spin on it.
Yeah, well, get ready for 11 more. Chris Canty, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having
We'll
me.
be seeing you, I'm
Appreciate
sure, leading up to the game. Coming up, will Le'Veon Bell be in a new uniform next season? Everyone's changing uniforms. Next, first things first.